Buenos dias, Gunners Collective TV. Back at it, you already know. Like a torta with some bad habits. Bye up, bye up. Let's get to the intro. Welcome back to Gunners Collective TV. And if you haven't already hit that like and subscribe button, make sure you go ahead and do that. Put the notification bell on all so that way you're directing the direction of the dope content that the gun stays kicking. And I appreciate the support, man. Thank you very much. I'm very humbled by it. So Tory Lanez. I did Time and High Power with Tory Lanez, right? Remember when Lefty Gunplay? Wait up. We can't say Lefty Gunplay anymore. He's the artist formerly known as Lefty Gunplay. He's now just Lefty, right? Anyways, Lefty said he did Time and High Power with Tory Lanez. Well, just today, man, someone got high power on Tory Lanez's ass. Tory Lanez was stabbed multiple times in the face in Tehachapi prison. Now, why is that an issue and a big deal? Well, he has semi-popularity. You know, for those that don't know, Tory Lanez is in prison behind the shooting of Megan Thee Stallion, another rapper who he was actually dating, or some say he wasn't dating, he was homies with. Regardless of the fact, he ended up catching time and he's in the California state prison system. And he's actually on a yard in Tehachapi. Now, TMZ's reporting that he was stabbed multiple times, enough where he had to be sent to the hospital because of the wounds he succumbed on his face. Now, obviously, they weren't trying to do him in, meaning that he wasn't trying to they weren't trying to kill him. They weren't trying to fucking cash in his ticket, because if they were, they would have put the knife in other places that means something. But still a big issue when you get stabbed on the yard. It's something he'll never, ever forget, and something he didn't think he'd experience. Now, what I have to say about this is the why, the how, the whatever behind it, the story behind why he was stabbed, one will never know. It could be anything from a personal dispute or an issue, an argument, or it could be someone that didn't like the fact that he was in prison for causing harm to a woman. Now, it always boggled my mind and baffled me how some people could get away with doing harm to women and children and still be able to walk the California general population yard. Now, I don't know if Tory Lanez is on GP or SNY, or if he's in one of those integrated yards, but the fact is he's still in the California prison, and people still feel them same type of ways, even on the SNY yard. People that harm women and children get no play, they get no love. So obviously, for whatever reason, Tory Lanez found himself at the end of a knife in prison, and that's an unfortunate experience. Now, what's probably going to happen from this point is they're not going to send him back to the yard. They're probably going to transfer him out to a lower security yard, or somewhere where they believe he's safe and he doesn't have no issues or no problems. Now, if Tory Lanez decides to speak on the person who stabbed him, if he knows who even did it, if he decides to give some background and tell, the IGI or the cops that, are going to question him what happened, then he's not going to be good in anywhere he goes. Sometimes issues that arise in other prisons will follow you, and that's just how it is. Now, to me, Tory Lanez, there's a lot of people that believe he was innocent, that he never actually did the crime that he was accused of, that he's sitting in jail because the popularity of Megan Thee Stallion and because they push an issue. I don't know what's what, man. When it comes to Tory Lanez, I know this. He dropped an album just a while back while he's been incarcerated. And there's a lot of people that are looking towards his release. He has a lot of fans. He has big support, and people hear about this and they're like, wow. But this just goes to show you, like I've been saying forever, when you're in prison, when you're in the California prison system, especially, man, places like Texas, California, Arizona, New Mexico, the whole Western Hemisphere, right? And everywhere else as well. Nobody's off limits. Just because you're semi-famous or popular or a rapper or a singer or someone that has a whole bunch of subscribers none of that means shit. In prison, everybody's on that same level. It's all about respect and about how you carry yourself and how you treat others. But if you do have some bullshit in your history or something in your past, it will creep up on you like a come up, like a Bones and Thug song, right? And you're going to be in trouble. Now, obviously, from what I'm hearing, Tory Lanez is going to be all right. He suffered lacerations to the face. They're saying they're severe lacerations. So he's probably going to stay in the infirmary for a day or two so they could sew him up and figure out where they're going to put him and what they're going to do with them. In this case, I believe they will put him in protective custody or administrative segregation pending the outcome of the investigation. You know, people are going to get talked to. Phone calls will be made, and they're going to figure it out. Now, more than likely, there's already people who dropped kites. It happens all the time. Letting the fucking cops know everything, why it transpired, who did it, why they did it. Now, they didn't say if the guy or guys who did this were taken into custody, meaning if they were caught. They could have just found him like they found Money Sign Suede leaking, you know? And it happens. It happens. You know, it happened with Money Sign Suede over a year and a half ago, or it was even longer now, where he was found killed in the shower in prison. You know, again, the popularity of people, you would think it would make people like you or leave you alone or pay less attention to you. But in prison, you're just another number, man. You're just another person. And if anything, that popularity and people don't get starstruck like you think. If anything, that makes you a target. There are some people that will get at you just because of who you are. Now, Tory Lanez has never been anyone that's been involved in the mix, in gangs and things like that. But when you're accused of pulling a gun out and shooting a woman's pinky toe off, this ain't the movie Harlem Nights, okay? You didn't shoot the fat bitch in the alley. He allegedly shot Megan Thee Stallion, or shot at Megan Thee Stallion is what she said, and he was convicted. Whether it was justified or not, you know. So if he's on a yard and people see that and hear that, they know that story, they're going to be like, oh, this guy likes taking advantage of women. He's tough. He's a tough guy with women. So someone will make the example. Again, with Tory Lanez being the person he has and probably having the money that he has, which is probably more than everyone on that yard he's on, or most people, you know, it could have been anything from targeted because somebody wanted something he had, or he didn't want to break bread like Jesus said. Whatever the case may be, he's in a bad situation right now. Okay, he's sitting there in the hospital, probably contemplating life. He went from having #1 records, selling out stadiums, millions of people supporting him, being a good singer, because Tory Lanez is actually a real good singer, right? And having any woman he wants, to riding around with a big bitch, right? Megan Thee Stallion. And what ends up happening? He ends up catching a case, and my, oh my, how his life has changed. You know, I remember sitting in prison sometimes or waking up in the county jail like, damn, bro, just yesterday I was eating carne asada at my fucking favorite taco shop. Now I'm going to struggle here and eat a sopa or two. You know, it's a big culture shock, especially for people like Cain Velasquez, Money Sign Suede, X-Rated had to go through it. You know, all these people that were semi-popular or stars on the streets that were involved in the music industry, the fight game, whatever you were involved in, once you get involved in the world of criminality, in the criminal world, all that shit ceases to exist, man. You're just another person on that yard, and you can get it just like anyone else. So unfortunately, Terry the Toolman Taylor, right? Tory Lanez tasted some steel today. And he's lucky that he was able to survive this attack, because Money Sign Suede wasn't. Several other rappers and people that have been incarcerated, some of them have not been able to survive. You know, you never really know prison until you know prison. I remember my first time. I was scared than a motherfucker, right? I was nervous. I was apprehensive. You know, I didn't want what I seen in the movies to reflect and be really what prison was. I found out quite swiftly, right? Not Swifty Blue, but quite swiftly, that it wasn't like it was in the movies. You know, as long as I minded my own business, stuck with my gente, my people who I rocked with, and respected everyone, that I pretty much wasn't going to be a target unless some shit cracked off on some North and South, or some Black and North, or some White and North, or whatever, because it cracks off with everybody. And then it was what it was. You know, I was strapped up. I had my thing. They had their thing. Let's do that thing. And that just was it. You know, the Tory Lanez situation, there's a lot of variables. One is this, and I'm going to be absolutely real right here and blunt. He is a brother, man. You know, and a lot of the brothers, man, depending upon who you are, will look out for you. You know, especially someone like Tory Lanez, who goes on the yard, man. Of course, he's going to function with the blacks, his people, the brothers, man. And it depends on who embraces him, who shows him love, who he kicks it with. Now, whether it's the Bay Area, the Kumis, the Bloods, on Paru, the Crips, the Muslims, the non-affiliates. You know, I would consider Tory Lanez, I don't know his gang status, but I'm pretty sure he's considered a non-affiliate. And usually those brothers right there get in the least amount of trouble, because they don't have to abide by the Crip politics or the Blood politics or the Kumi politics. They pretty much just get in where they're fit in. They do their time. They kick it amongst the brothers, man. They showed respect, and they don't put their nose in anyone's business or anyone's politics, because it's rather unbecoming of them. So I don't know if Tory Lanez was considered a non-affiliate. I'm sure he was. And maybe his popularity, you know, on the yard would be a reasoning for protection. But it's not like people think. Just like when Diddy got locked up, people were like, oh, the brothers are going to protect him, or he's going to pay people to protect him. I don't know what movie you watched because I missed that one. You don't just go on the yard and pay everyone and they protect you if you have a bad case. Now, if you're in good standings and you don't need anyone to protect you, you're going to rock with your people. As long as you're accounted for when something cracks off with a different race or a different gang, you're good. Now, if you don't fucking show up and show out, you're definitely they're going to show you out the yard door. You're going to get rolled up. You're going to get stabbed. You're going to get removed. It happens in every ethnicity and every race. Now, there is no racial lines when it comes to that. You fuck up, you're going to get fucked up. That's prison for you, especially in the California system, because that's the only system I know besides the other two systems I was in, and there was no comparison. Okay. Washington was lightweight crazy, but Oregon wasn't. I'll say this. Okay. Tory Lanez, Tehachapi prison has a history. And, I'm not sure if if Tehachapi is even considered an active yard. I know they have an SNY yard there. They just set off a riot on the SNY yard last week. So I don't know if that's the yard he's functioning on or he's still general population. But none of that money, none of that fame, nothing like that's going to protect you. And all that, when I see people like, oh, if you pay for protection, you'll be good. If you have a bad case, this is the way it breaks down. If you have a bad case, say you're a black dude, for instance, right? And you have a bad case and you run into someone, man, you're like, hey, I'll cash you out, bro. And he's like, I got you. He might got you amongst his people. And they might respect him and listen to him and let a bygone be a bygone and give you a pass. But that doesn't mean the SAs on the yard or the NAs on the yard or the whites on the yard are going to allow you to be on their same shared yard with them having a bad charge. It's not the way it works. More than likely, if one of them SAs finds out that you're all bad, right? And in this case, man, I don't know what he did to get stabbed, but I'm just saying if it was based upon his charge, then they're going to go holler at the rep for the blacks, and they're going to say, hey, bro, that dude got a bad case. He can't be functioning on this yard. There's too much going on in this yard, because automatically, when you have a no good case, they automatically throw you in with the rats, the roaches, the shiesty approaches, right? They're going to say he's no good. We can't trust him on this yard. We can't function on this yard, general population, with someone with a bad case. And so usually the blacks will deal with it, right? If they decide they don't, then it goes up. That means a riot's happening on the yard and everyone can get it. And it's vice versa too when it comes to the Mexicans. If the Southsiders or the Northerners are harboring a fucking someone they shouldn't, and a black or a white finds out, they're going to jam them up too and be like, hey, bro, I heard about this. I was in the county with this guy. It's always drama. In this world, that's the way it is. And in prison, you better have an impeccable record, or you better be a stand-up dude, because if not, you're going to stand down. That's a fact. Now, if Tory Lanez is on an SNY yard, if he's on a non-conforming yard, if he's on a non-active yard, again, remember, 50-50 doesn't count for the brothers, man. They can go to 50-50 yards because it's not 50-50 for them. They don't play. That's not in their politics, right? So when they, if you ever hear a black dude say, hey, man, a Mexican was on a 50-50 yard, he's no good, like, you were there too. Because you can't dictate someone else's politics or claim. It's all different. Just like there's some black politics, man, that Mexicans don't abide by. It just is what it is, right? So that's not a big situation. But if he's over there on, say, an SNY yard, more than likely, man, no one's going to trip off his charge, what he's in for, unless it's one man specifically that feels some type of way, and then he's going to get off where he's mad at. It's usually how it goes down, right? So with saying that, I could say, Tory Lanez was stabbed. The background story on why, I'm sure the cops know already, but we might not ever know. But, I bet you he's sitting there in the infirmary right now like, damn, what happened? Prison is what happened. That's what happens when you're living a criminal lifestyle or you're involved in crime. Now you go to a place where everything you did before does not count, does not matter. Not the singing, not the dancing, not the fucking, not the whatever you were doing. None of that matters. What matters is how you carry yourself and what shenanigans you get involved in prison. I've seen dudes do all day, 10, 15 years, solid, active, in good standings with their homies, and they fuck up one time. Something cracks off out on the yard and they just happen to be at work, man, and they got there too late and they took off running and they got tackled, and someone politics on them and says, hey, the homie didn't jump for us, or he didn't make it to the yard, or this or that, or isn't it convenient he had a visit, or whatever, right? And I've actually seen people get dirty politicked on, and next thing you know, that 15-year career, solid, man, kicking it with the homies, busting bread, breaking bread, busting down, eating, all that doesn't matter anymore, because now one guy or a few guys decided they had a personal agenda, or they felt you didn't fucking play the game right, and now you're no good. And now all your little homies in your hood and everybody is calling you a rat, a piece of shit, a punk, a sucker, right? They forget it. And then they say all them 15 years you did solid. None of that counts anymore the moment you dropped out. A lot of dudes don't even get the opportunity or the chance to drop out. They get pushed out or removed out or fucking banged out or however it goes, but they're out. Okay, so with Tory Lanez, I don't think he was playing any of those politics. More than likely, he was kicking it with the non-affiliated blacks, the brothers, man, just doing his thing. And he probably made someone mad, someone upset. Might have gotten an argument, and they might have said, I don't give a fuck how good you sing, bro. Let's see how good you sing when I stab your mouth wide open. So he did suffer multiple lacerations to the face, not life-threatening, but enough to get him the fuck up off that yard. And usually that's what happens. If someone don't want you on the yard, they whack you. Case in point, the Norteño movement. When I was functioning as a Northerner, man, there was a lot of whackings going on. There was a lot of slicings, okay? That was a way to leave a mark so people knew wherever you went in life, you were no good, but also that was a violent way to remove someone from the yard. That's why they were called removals. In fact, the Norteño movement are the first ones to call a removal a removal. That's a fact, okay? Southsiders didn't call it a removal. They just called rolling you up off the yard, getting you up off the yard. And they didn't use razor blades. They used knives. Northerners made up the whole concept of a removal, the aputo mark. They were going to slice you and slash you. Not to say Southsiders weren't slashing too. They were doing that, but more of them are going to put metal in you, right? And Northerners were doing the same thing. But usually if you seen a dude get whacked on the yard, it was the Northerners doing it, and that was called a removal, right? And it wasn't meant to kill somebody. If they got killed in the process, it was what it was. It's prison, right? But it was more so to let you know violently you're not welcome anymore. And I've seen a lot of people get handled, and it just is what it is. I'm not going to talk about my involvement at all. But let's just say that's the way it goes down. Now, if they really wanted to kill him, they would have done that. They'd have put 2-3 hitters on him, hit him where the sun don't shine, and boom, the sun wouldn't be shining no more. You know, man down, sun down. That's it. That's just the way it works. Anyways, Tory Lanez was stabbed in Tehachapi prison this morning. And he's going to see all right, cuz. He's going to be all good. Again, he was moved from there to the medical facility where he's going to be patched up. And then the process starts of healing. The mental process starts. But what even starts more than that is them figuring out where they're going to place him now. Because now it's a security threat just to put him right back on the yard. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he won't be placed back on the yard. And the guys who did it, if caught, removed from the yard. But it could start all over again. They're going to know where to place him. More than likely, like I said, he's going to stick around in ad seg or the infirmary for a while until they figure it out. You never know. He might end up in the same fucking place where Danny Masterson is jacking old men off in fucking wheelchairs. One never knows, does one. With that being said, man, I hope you guys enjoy the content. Breaking news, like I said, reported by TMZ. Tory Lanez was stabbed multiple times in the facial area. He got a facial today. He got a facial. He went from giving Megan Thee Stallion facials to getting his own facial. And it was a rather sharp occasion. With that said, thumbs up or thumbs down. Heavy's going to be the head that wears the crown. I'm going to continue to strive, struggle, and strive for what I truly believe in. And that's the betterment of all people. This is the gun. Bang, bang.